Well, the man behind those infamous anti-Trump text messages facing House lawmakers on Capitol Hill right now. FBI agent Peter Strzok appearing behind closed doors for a highly anticipated interview with the House Judiciary Committee. We're back with the America's Newsroom A-team. Maria Bartiromo, Brad Blakeman, and Richard Fowler are here. And what a moment that was, Maria, to see him actually arrive there on Capitol Hill and walk into that room for this interview. We hadn't seen him personally, in person in quite some time.
Yeah, and a lot of people want to see him and hear what he has to say. He's got some explaining to do after all of these texts that basically suggest that he was willing to actually put his bias on the line and let it dictate where the investigation goes. And I think now there's a lot of questions saying, oh, let me go back to the IG Michael Horowitz's testimony and really look through exactly what he said, because he did not say that there was not bias that affected decisions when it relates to the Trump-Russia collusion investigation, which of course, was started on July 31, 2016. 8 days later, Peter Strzok writes a text, "We will stop him."
And from what we learned, Brad, Strzok was involved in all this.
Oh,
he ran the Russia investigation for close to a year.
Absolutely. But the senior leadership of the FBI is what stinks. You have Comey, who is an admitted leaker. He's a liar. You have McCabe, the #2, who's seeking immunity. And now you have Strzok, who was having an extramarital affair in the FBI, using FBI equipment to do these social media posts and tweets. And the environment in the FBI, to even think that it's okay to do that, is a culture problem within the FBI. Now, remember, Strzok today is not under subpoena. He is voluntarily appearing.
He's not under oath either.
And he's not under oath. And it is an interview, exactly.
Still can't lie to Congress. Let's be clear, though. Chairman Goodlatte was on the program this morning talking to Bill shortly before walking into that room to hold that interview. And he made it very clear where they stand before they start asking him questions. Listen to this. That's Goodlatte. Okay.
I will tell you that the bias, which was clearly against Donald Trump and for Hillary Clinton, is reflected in the actions that were taken by the FBI in both those investigations.
Clearly anti-Trump bias. That's the chairman heading into that meeting. Richard.
Well, listen, I think the FBI, they did both candidates a disservice. I mean, we saw 7 days before the election, they found random emails on Hillary Clinton, and people would argue that harpooned her campaign. But what I think Peter Strzok, from a larger perspective, represents is the poster child for unaccountable, untransparent law enforcement, which is a problem that has existed in this country for decades. And activists for decades have been calling for transparency on the local and the state level for law enforcement. They've been calling for it in Staten Island, their Garner case, and they're calling for it here on Capitol Hill, and they deserve it.
All right, listen, today's important, but we're really not going to know a lot about what happened inside there. When he goes public for the public hearing, which Goodlatte said will happen, yes. that'll be must-see TV. Topic really number 2. You guys are civil. I mean, I see Brad and Richard. I see you guys debating through the window in Washington, D.C. You guys like each other.
We do.
Oh, yeah, we do.
I'm not so sure what's going on with Maxine Waters. She is drafting a lot of attention now, and this call for uncivility in America is not sitting well. And she was just speaking in a House committee a moment ago, and well, she's trying to shift the blame for all of this on the president. Here's what she said.
There was a time in America's history where you could be denied service in a restaurant based on the color of your skin. Now, apparently, it's the color of your voter registration card.
Mr. Chairman, if you want to talk about civility, you start with the President of the United States, and you implore him not to continue to promote violence, not to continue to promote divisiveness.
That's Jeb Hensarling there, the congressman, doing the back and forth.
I've never heard the president promote violence.
We need to
I've
take
never
a step
heard the
back
president
from
promote
all
violence.
this, don't we?
Absolutely. Look,
I've heard candidate Trump say at a rally, punch him in the face and I'll pay your legal bills. And I know there's sound on that. So this president has promoted violence, and I don't think
you take that literally?
The people are taking Maxine Waters' comments literally. So
that's wrong. That's wrong.
Look, both sides need to calm down.
Absolutely.
But Maxine Waters had an opportunity to apologize. Her speech was insightful.
And so was the president's
She was looking to foment violence. And look at Gabby Giffords when she was shot. Look at the Republican congressmen when they were shot on the baseball field in Virginia. This is wrong, and their actions can spur violence.
She should take responsibility for it. She should take responsibility for it.
I agree with you 100%, but you cannot look at Maxine Waters in a vacuum and act like there's not civility. There's 100% civility on the other side. Both sides, both
take
parties.
Responsibility for your actions.
So should the president. The president has engaged in bullying. The president has engaged in bad behavior. And what's happening is everybody's looking at Maxine Waters as she's part of the problem, but they're not looking at the White House like the president doesn't also bully and doesn't also say incendiary things.
This is not a chicken or egg argument anymore.
Right. No, we should all be more civil.
The moment something happens, all sides need to go back to their corners. We saw this in a baseball field in Washington, D.C. a year ago with Steve Scalise.
And it doesn't help with Hollywood out constantly targeting President Trump, like Robert De Niro and him, all the F-bombs that he's constantly throwing out. It's inspiring people to get violent. And Peter Fonda saying that somebody should kidnap Sarah Sanders' children. Enough.
Britt Hume has weighed in through an opinion piece, writing about things in the civility of now. And he writes, we need to draw back from this place. One way would be to recognize the wisdom in what's probably the greatest self-help book ever written. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Wow. The book, written in 1939, is intended as a guide for problem drinkers. But its famous 12 steps trace a path for anyone. In America today, the book's elaboration on step 10 practically cries out to be followed. Nothing pays off like restraint of pen and tongue.
I like that.
We could use it. Absolutely. Last topic quickly. John Bolton's in Moscow. There's going to be a summit. It's going to happen. You okay with that? Because I know the first thing you're going to say, right? A little bit of collusion there?
No. Listen, I'm happy that we're talking to the Russians. I would hope that we would work on rebuilding the fence with our allies than before we deal with the Russians, who's our #1 foe. I think we should work on
Russia intersects every issue we've talked about. You get back to the Beta 2000 problem.
I'd rather work on rebuilding our relationship
quickly.
All I can tell you is this is good cop, bad cop. Pompeo is a diplomat. Bolton is a tough policy guy. I couldn't think of a better guy to first sit down with Putin.
Maria? You can't ignore Russia. I mean, we should have talks with Russia for sure.
Yeah,
but I do agree that the trade issues and our allies need to be fixed as well.
Heading into this meeting, Sarah Sanders made it very clear that there was potential for a presidential meeting. She said so in a tweet this morning, where we are just getting word now from the White House that a decision and an announcement is expected today on that potential meeting between the president and Vladimir Putin.
Maybe we'll get a date.
Maybe we'll get a time.
More must-watch TV.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks,
Maria. Awesome. Our A team, how about it, huh? We need a clap track, an applause track for you guys.